Believe climate change is a problem that merits federal action sooner than later? If so, what measures or legislative initiatives would you support or introduce? And 4, which national energy initiatives would you champion in the House? Natural gas, clean coal, quote unquote, wind, solar, or other? Should the government provide subsidies similar to the oil companies, or should the marketplace decide? Those are the questions I submitted, and what I'd like to do is give each candidate about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to talk about those issues, not get too far off topic, and then the other person will talk, and then we'll take questions from the audience. And hopefully we will stay impartial, somewhat apolitical if possible, and give a chance to whoever wants to go first. Who would like to go first? Do you want me to? Elizabeth? Okay, you're up.
Well, thank you to Curtis and to Jean, and thank you to Andrew, and most of all, thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. Yes, I know too that the debate is on later, and I want to thank everyone for having braved the fog. I think most of us got here before it got here, but it is going to be slower and careful driving on the way home, and I mean that quite seriously because it's gotten pretty foggy out there. It's a delight to be here. I enjoyed being with you last year, but obviously where we are now is a different place. And we are facing some very important decisions in this year's election, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to be here and to have a conversation with you about those issues. The first question that Curtis asked is, what is it about our background? What do we bring to the table? And I want to say up front, one of the reasons I'm so energized and committed to running this year is because I see an enormous opportunity, but also an enormous imperative to actually have a national energy program in this country. Now, I'm old enough to remember waiting in gas lines and Jimmy Carter and turning down the heat. We have been talking about this, folks, for 40 years. For 40 years. It is time to stop talking and start doing. And as I'll tell you a little bit about my background, I think I do bring some particular skill sets and experience to the table around that imperative issue, not just for our state and our country, but truly for the world, that we do need to address this issue. I have a lifelong commitment to the environment, and it really started as a volunteer. The first Earth Day I spent pulling tires out of the San Francisco Bay. And I also have to tell you, my mother is from a family that's Dutch. I don't know if you know many Dutch people, but Dutch people are renowned for being rather tight with their money, to say the least. So old light bulbs were used to go inside socks to darn them. We washed our foil and reused it. Tea bags used at least 3 times, and that was in part because it was really tough during the Depression, but it was also sort of an ethic in my family about stewardship of the earth, about conserving what you can, using what you have in front of you, and making multiple uses of it. And actually, the Ziploc bags get washed and reused. I mean, we still do that. And I think that kind of ethic is in part what we need people in Washington who are thinking in those terms and modeling sort of those mores. So I spent the first Earth Day pulling tires out of the bay. I spent time as a parent in many recycling classrooms and efforts with my children. Time, helping the land trust in Cheshire, where I served on the town council, where we worked hard to buy up open space and help preserve what had been farmland in Cheshire, which, as we all know, has been an enormous development pressure in our state and a real commitment to preserving open space and greenways. I have the opportunity to serve on the Environment Committee of the Connecticut Community Foundation, where we're making, as some of you know, big efforts around our rivers here in the Northwest, and hopefully another wild and scenic river designation, which we were talking about earlier. In the state legislature, I served on the Energy and Technology Committee, where we worked hard to help have, again, for our state, a comprehensive energy plan focusing on clean energy, supporting conservation efforts, funding the Clean Energy Fund, and trying to help bring down gas prices, which we know, and energy prices, which are extremely high in our state. I'm very proud through that service to have earned a 100% rating from the League of Conservation Voters for both my years in the legislature, to have also the support of the co-chairs of the Environment Committee in the legislature, and to have earned the endorsement of the Sierra Club, not just in my state rep races, but in this congressional race that Sierra Club has endorsed me. There is a lot at stake in this election, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. I did want to say something that was noted by our honorees, and just add this as sort of an addendum. The mention of education and science and sort of public-private partnerships, and I do think that's one of the issues that I think we should be discussing tonight, because I think all of those issues are very much at stake. Curtis raised the question about the Farm Bill. As you may or may not know, the current state of play is not surprising for Washington. Gridlock. The Senate passed a bill which has flaws but is not terrible. The House voted out of committee a bill which is terrible and did not get called for a vote. So once again, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. And there's no even commitment to even call either one of these bills in the House during a lame duck session. I will let you know that, having met with folks with the American Farmland Trust and looking hard for our state and our district, there are some really important provisions that recommend something more like the Senate bill and the House bill. One is the Senate bill has really important conservation provisions inserted into it to ensure that if you're going to get drought and crop protection, that you have to be following good conservation soil practices. This is incredibly important. It used to be the case, it got pulled out of the bill, and Saxby-Chambliss put it back in, and that's in the Senate bill. It's a reason we should be supporting the Senate bill, because we know here with our soil how important it is to have conservation. The issues around easements, again, critically important. We know, I know many of you here, I want to raise your hand if you're involved in land trust. Here, that's right here. So we know here, me too, we know here that we have done these private partnerships of individual landowners setting aside through easements conservation land. And it is an essential part, particularly when we have budgets as tight as they are right now. We absolutely need to have at the federal level support for and protection for easements. Again, this is a provision in the Senate bill, and it's a reason to support that provision. One of the issues we have real trouble with is around the dairy issues, and I don't know if you saw, there was an article just yesterday noting how one of the problems of this gridlock is the risk that we could see a huge spike in dairy prices if we don't get an agreement. Again, the Senate bill is a bit better because it is taking into account the cost of production, which is obviously much higher for us here in Connecticut, but also taking into account we need to reduce the subsidies for agribusiness. This is a big issue for our district, where we have small family farms, and we need a farm bill that is supporting family farming and small farming, and not just doing giveaways to Archer Daniels Midland. I mean, it is a farm bill. We need a farm bill that recognizes and values family farms. And frankly, it's part of farm security too. If you've heard the food safety discussion, as a national security matter, we need to be able to have food sources all over the country and not be entirely dependent on single crops coming out of the Midwest or California. And so again, this is part of actually a health and national security concern, in addition to helping preserve the landscape we love here in Northwest Connecticut. So for all those reasons, I would urge that the House to look to take up the Senate bill and pass it so we can ensure we can continue a lot of these important protections going forward. Let's see. Climate change. Yes, I believe in climate change. It's true. I'm a believer in climate change. It is really quite clear that scientists do agree that human impact on our climate is real. Now, you can debate a bit about the extent of impact, of human impact, but it is certainly true that it is real. And we need to, as a country, and as a world, plan for this. Now, it is part of the reason that I am an opponent of the XL pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline. The process of extracting oil sands is extremely damaging, not just to groundwater, but something a lot of people may not know, that actually the process of doing it releases enormous amounts of greenhouse gas, which contribute to climate change. So we do have a worldwide concern in the XL pipeline. It's not just a function of where that oil would go, it's also just an extraction process matters. We need to have a commitment in this country to several things. One is to robust research and development. This has been an issue that, frankly, I have to say, in the House of Representatives in the last 2 years have been repeated efforts to strip research and development funding. This is going to be, I believe, a key part of the clean, sustainable, affordable energy future. We have done well in this country by basic research. And this is an area where we need to continue to do that, not reduce, but increase our commitment to basic R&D. I think we are probably on a 20 to 30 year time frame to a non-fossil fuel-based future. Likely to be natural gas as an important part of that transition, but we need to move to that transition. And conservation, efficiency is going to be unbelievably important. The rest of the world models what we do, basically. And unfortunately, they've developed our energy appetites, and they've developed our food appetites, and it isn't good for anybody in the world, not us, not anybody else. So again, having higher efficiency standards for automobiles and all sorts of transportation is really, really important. Having building standards that support greater energy efficiency is very important, and having consistent standards over time so that companies can make long-term investments. And that predictability helps bring down costs over the long term. That, again, is another cost to the gridlock we face. A cost to the gridlock is that companies are afraid and reluctant to make the kinds of investments that are exactly what we need in this country to have sustained progress forward. So again, those are some of my approaches on climate change. Let's see, final question. National energy initiatives, we sort of already segued into that. I'm strongly committed to having a national policy that is broadly looking at the full range of possible fuels, including the R&D work that is being done on wave power, on algae power, and there's a lot of innovative, extraordinary things being done. We have to look at all of it, And I can't begin to pretend to you right now, I know what that future is going to look like in 20 or 30 years. But I do know if we continue to subsidize big oil, if we continue to rely on fossil fuels as our major source, we are dooming ourselves as a planet, and we are jeopardizing our national security because it has continued to keep us entangled with regimes around the world that have put us at risk. I have a niece who deployed to Kabul 3 weeks ago. And there's just no doubt that our involvement in that part of the world is highly tied to our seeming limitless appetite for oil. So we need to make, and face it, if we weren't spending all the money on national security related concerns in the Middle East, that would free up more money for investment in environmental protection, in education, in a transit system that was less energy intensive. There are all these good things we care about, which we could do if we were not as dependent on foreign oil. So for all of those reasons, I think a comprehensive energy strategy, which has consistent long-term research and development, consistent efforts that support a wide array of fuel choices, so that the market can help discern what will work for us. And face it, we've seen the difficulty when government picks winners and losers. It doesn't work very well. But I will tell you what does work well is putting a lot of initiatives on the table. I trust American ingenuity. We've done well in this country when we've been creative, tried different things, but we need to have a goal.
And that goal needs to be not just getting off of foreign oil. That goal needs to be